Clint from the Doorway too. I got Amaya with me from Moth the Moth. I want to say thank you very much for coming here, doing this with me, taking your time. I know we got a crazy time difference going on from where I am to where you are. So again, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you to you. Thanks to you.
All right. Awesome. So the first question I'm going to kind of ask is, I kind of took my time over the last couple of days and listened to the 3 proper albums of what you've done. Not so much the live recordings or things like that, but the earlier material seems a little bit more somber and melancholy, where the new record kind of sounds more epic and kind of maybe more grandiose. I kind of wanted to get your vibe on the 3 records and how you think they flow to where you are now.
So it's actually been like a pretty long road. So the first album came in 2011. So I guess I was a very different person from the one I'm now. I had always had the bands that I had before that had always been like rock bands, and this was like my first attempt at like doing something that felt more unique to myself, because I had always played the piano, and the piano had always been like my instrument. However, I never really used it that much when having bands with other people and so on. So I'd always been I'd only been a singer. So this was like kind of trying to take that motivation that I had to have a band, or like to have a more like modern project, and just use the tools that I had at my availability, which didn't suck, like playing the guitar in my case. So it was kind of a way of reclaiming my instrument and trying to, continue that vibe and that motivation that I had for writing more like rock or like dark stuff, but using the piano. So I guess it's been like quite a learning process until the last album. I just think it's like to me it's like a very natural evolution.
Okay, perfect, awesome. So I'm going to throw some influences that I heard. If you think I'm crazy or out of my mind, let me know. But so moving throughout the records, I hear a lot of early Tori Amos, and I don't know if you really like her or don't like her, but I hear that. I hear a lot of and especially on the first 2 records, I don't know if I'm crazy again, but I hear a lot of Fiona Apple too. Like just the way she emotes her vocals are very similar to the passion that you have on the earlier records versus the newer record. And then I'm going to say so one of my favorite bands in the world is Over. And I hear a lot of kind of the themes and Perdition City period Over. I hear a lot of Third and Immortal, like Dead Can Dance, stuff like that. Would you agree or disagree? Am I on the right track or?
You're definitely on the right track with some of them, although all of the bands that you've mentioned, I quite like. Some I like more than others, but definitely Fiona Apple and Tori Amos were like probably like one of my earliest like influences, specific not only for Moth the Moth, but just in general for like my whole musical career. I was like obviously very, very impressed by them. I listened to them as a teenager. So I just really appreciate from them, maybe not so much Fiona Apple. I think she's more of like a more traditional jazz singer in the sense of like, although she's really, really unbelievably good, especially her first 2 albums to me are like, kind of top 10 material for me. And they really, really, really influenced me a lot. But especially Tori Amos, it was one of the first musicians that I listened to who was like very, very, could be very, very dark and very fucked up in like a non-obvious way, because sometimes you get all these like metal bands, like pop metal bands that are like, oh, look at me with all of my distortion, and it's just really safe. And to me, Tori Amos was like, she could be really, really aggressive and really cruel and really, just really screwed up in like a non-obvious way, which to me was like really artistic. And I she just really blew my mind. I was obsessed with her for so long. Also, the fact, obviously, that both of these artists use piano to me was like, kind of a reassurance, and to also go down that path, because I think that's like really important, and especially when you're a woman and you like rock and metal. There's not like that many. Not that many like prevalent, or when I was a teenager, there were not that many prevalent figures there. So to me, the having these two figures, which are not considered rock or metal by any means, but I think they do have that very dark and very aggressive thing about them. And to me, so it was someone to look up to, and I think that's, sadly, it is the way it is. If you don't have like a figure that you can think, it gives you the idea of following in their path. And it's, to me, those were really important figures. Quickly about the other two, Ulver is one of my favorite bands. I absolutely adore them. I love Perdition City. I love like some of their more like rocky, crazy albums.
Mm-hmm.
I like Nathan's Madrigal as well. Like, I just really like that they've just been completely done whatever they wanted to do. They
Sure.
have never cared for what people thought about them or didn't think about them, and how creative they are. So I guess that comes. I don't know if that comes across. I don't personally think it does, but I'm happy to hear that. And the Third and Immortal, it's a band that I've been compared to a couple of times, and I think like all the singers they've had are really, really amazing, but sadly to me, like, they don't really speak to me that much. Like, I don't.
Okay.
It's not what I appreciate the most about the bands. I do appreciate their, like, how creative they are. Harmonically and like songwriting wise, they remind me a bit of Virus, which I adore as well. But it's just the vocal stuff that throws me off a bit.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah.
Okay, cool. No, that's awesome. So the Third and Immortal I more hear from you is the last couple of records. You have a very similar vocal style to the final female vocalist to me, where
Yeah,
tonality it's kind of the same.
yeah, the
That
jazzier stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's it. So I kind of want to talk about again, going back. I agree. The Tori Amos and the Fiona Apple. It's almost cool for metal kids and stuff to like that because it's so melancholy and dark. So I think you kind of cross that world. I kind of wanted to ask you, why do you think so many more extreme music fans like your music? I see a lot of them talk very favorably about you and a couple of other very specific bands like Chelsea Wolfe or things like that. Why do you think that you give them pleasure where other bands that are very similar to what you do don't?
Well, I think I can approach the question in two directions.
Okay.
The first one would be that, like, I have always been in those circles, so I don't know how much of this is like causation or correlation. And the second one is a bit more, I don't know, spiritual, I guess. I guess I do listen to lots of rock and metal, and I do like very, very dark music. Even like the classical music that I tend to like tends to be like pretty, I don't know, like strident in some way, and not the more. I tend to favor those sounds, and I guess it's inevitable that if you listen to certain things, it'll eventually come through in your own songwriting. So I think it's a matter of, it is there somewhere, like it's maybe harder to point out why those sounds would appeal to those people, but considering we do have probably very similar musical tastes, I don't think it is that far-fetched, like I think it does transpire in some way.
Cool. No, that's awesome. Thanks. So I want to talk a little bit about the music and the sounds that I hear inside it, especially the last record. Now, again, I might have something different in my ear than what came from you, but I hear a lot of Scandinavian folk, jazz, kind of Eastern music mixed with the, I would say, more symphonic, neoclassical music as well. Were they all kind of elements that you were bringing into this record? Where I don't hear it so much in the earlier first two records, I really hear it in this third album.
Yeah, so I guess especially in the first album, I was much younger, obviously, and I was much more influenced by the exterior. I was another big influence for me for the first album were Dresden Dolls. So it does have a bit more of that like cabaret songwriting-y vibe, which is more accessible. It's more like pop rock, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, However, in the second album and especially in Orphanay, I think everything just became much more introspective. So I at least tried to escape a bit more my direct influences in an obvious way and try to seek inside and try to search for sounds that would like move me in a similar way to what I was feeling for each song, right? Um, Regarding the folk component, it is something that's always been in my life. Maybe I kind of didn't really take advantage of or interiorize that much. But especially on my mom's side, like my granddad like has been singing his whole life, and it's like so they used to sing. It was like some of my earliest musical experiences are those of like traditional Spanish folk, which I guess takes a lot from like the Middle East and the Colic Arabic influence.
Yes.
And because my family are from the north of Spain as well, it kind of clashes with like that more like Celtic influence. So it's a bit of a mishmash. If you listen to like music from that area, from that region, it's like Castilian traditional music. It
Yes.
does have a bit of that kind of like, like ritualistic aspect of Celtic music. Very like it's ornate in this way, in this like Middle Eastern way. So I think it comes from there, like just trying to reach in and trying to connect with something that was more myself rather than an influence.
Yeah, you could definitely hear it. That's why I was saying and it comes through really well. So the Amanda Palmer thing, the whole Dresden Doll, I was going to kind of talk about that later on, but you kind of threw it in right now already to me. So I kind of feel like you have a similar path. So you kind of do your band side live, and when you go out and do more of a full performance. And then you have these very personal moments that I see on YouTube, like those bedroom sessions and your live sessions where you're just doing things like that. She's done very much the same thing with Dresden Dolls, and then went very by herself and did something drastically different. I kind of wanted to see how these bedroom sessions came about to be, and what's the feedback been on them? Like, because they're really impressive, like they're really well done. I'm not really sure if they're just impromptu and you throw them straight out and do it, or you take a lot of time and do it. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So they've definitely, I think I've done like there's 3 videos under that idea. The first 2 I did ages ago as well. I think they're like from 2013 or something like that. So it's not really a quarantine thing. It was more, the intention behind them was a bit to offer something that was a bit more intimate and that was more open, like a bit like of more of like the personal side, share a bit of the ambience of I don't know what my life was like, I guess, because the songs are so personal as well. The whole idea of like the bedroom sessions, as in like multiple bedrooms, came from the fact that I just kept moving around a lot. Like I think I've moved like houses like 10 times in the last 6 or 7 years. It's insane. So I move around a lot, not by choice, just life throwing me around. So it kind of became a bit of like this kind of nomadic feel to it. However, I would have liked to do many more than the ones I have done. Why I didn't do more was because it was not possible for me. I didn't have like enough people around me to help me film, or the first 2 I did in Madrid. So I had lots of friends there who do like film, or I could borrow like some lights and stuff. And And the last one was in Edinburgh, where I've been living for a while now. And again, I was a bit more stable. But other places, even though I would have liked to do it, it was just not possible to do it in the same, like keeping the same spirit of the initial ones. So I just had to abort the mission.
Perfect. No, it completely makes sense. So that's the next thing I was going to ask. You kind of brought it in. So from Spain to Scotland, like what made that happen? Why Scotland? Is it influencing your music in any way differently, you think, than when you were in Spain? Talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. Well, it's just been, I guess, just life. When I finished, when I finished my degree in Spain, like I was in the middle of a massive crisis. It was really hard for people who just finished, their degree and stuff. So I ended up applying to do a master's, and I got a position in the south of England. I moved there. I finished, and then I started applying for PhDs, and I got one in Scotland. So then I moved here.
Nice.
And yeah, and I just kind of stayed here. Like I kind of built my life here. And I think it definitely has influenced not just my music, but also my personality, I'd say. A lot of, yeah, definitely. I think like places really have like a big influence on everything around you.
Perfect. All right, cool. No, that's awesome. So I want to talk about the artwork and kind of the logos and everything, with Maud the Moth. So they're really unique. It's interesting. Everything kind of seems like it ties into the lyrical or the feelings of the records or the point in time that the band sounds like it's in. And I know it's really just you, but it feels more like a band kind of vibe. So can you talk a bit about like the artwork and how it plays a role and just how the aesthetics of the project changed and morphed each record?
Yeah, so the first one kind of is a bit of a homage to when I first started this project, when I must have been like around 13 or 12. Like I've been writing music for as long as I can remember, but I think when I was 13, 14, I started this whole idea of like bedroom band thing. I would
Mm-hmm.
record in tapes and like overdub in tapes, and it was like this kind of teenage goth dream. The whole thing was called Moth, and I had these like tapes that I would make myself, with pen, with like some kind of like
Um,
just kind of crying. Yeah, it was very embarrassing.
gotcha.
So so the first album was a bit like it was. I did the cover painting, and I had some help from a friend of mine who's like an amazing drawer and like designer, and he's really really good. So he helped me tidy up things a bit, and that was it. It was just first album was pretty much like I don't know what I'm doing. Here it is. Thing. And then the second album was initially ended up being with a different photographer, but it would have initially the idea was to have worked with my friend Jaude, who did some of my crazier pictures, the ones that I have like multiple eyes and black
Mm-hmm.
hands and stuff like that. And he's like an amazing person. Like he really gets me artistically, and like a lot of the artistic concepts from the Moth I think I've developed together with him. In the end, like he got a bit sick and he was like not able to do it. So I ended up working with Veronica, who's an amazing photographer as well. And she was like really able to kind of honor the ideas that I had developed with my friend. So that was the whole idea of like delving into this wasteland
Gotcha.
world, and there's the idea of like this like wasteland as this boundary between very urban environments and nature. So this was this kind of like I don't know, it kind of tries to tap into this like liminal space, which is also to me was like very directly related to my feelings. Just like the time I lived in Madrid, it was like also really affected the way that I felt and my personality and so on. And so the last album was completely different. It's kind of full on oniric dream world.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to create this like series of boxes that would be like the album would be like a small universe contained within them. So when you open the vinyl, you get this kind of like world inside it. I could show you an example. I don't know if you
Okay.
see. I am surrounded by vinyls right now in my house, so I should have maybe prepared this a bit more. So this is a vinyl,
Oh.
and so it's supposed. You might see the actual original one here, just hanging from my wall. So this is a piece from a French calligrapher called Charles Boissart, and that's his job. Like he's a calligrapher. That's his job. He gets to do like medieval paintings and old book reproductions, like
Very cool.
a day job, which is just insane. And I was just browsing through Facebook, and I saw his work, and it just absolutely, to me, was like completely matched the idea that I had for Orphée. Stylistically, this kind of like Art Deco, Middle Eastern, kind of dream world. And he actually designed this as a kind of like, it was supposed to be like a jewelry box. So the idea would be that you would open it and then you would get this like universe inside here, which is like this kind of cosmos, which was designed by Anna Frigatti. He, like Charles, did also the lettering, like somewhere
Okay.
here. And so that was basically the idea. It's kind of a much more oniric piece, I think, like piece of work. Like the album is kind of thought of this as in like this jewelry box, and then inside it, it's like a magical world or something.
Gotcha. Very cool. Awesome. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to tie into that as well too. It seems like the artwork is more made to be visual. So there's kind of a rebirth of vinyl records, and there's a rebirth of the singer-songwriter kind of making the record kind of a story. Do you feel like that you're part of that world, like that vinyl records are way more important now than ever before, especially with the way that your music is and just the overall themes and tone of the music?
Well, and this might sound a bit geek, but I am pretty much an audio geek by by career. So I had never had my music pressed on vinyl before, and I have actually noticed a difference. I guess it's not that obvious and I am able to notice in this because it is my work and I'm very, very familiar with it. But I find that for music that is like quite detailed or classical music, when there's like lots of transients, the vinyl, because it's like an actual physical medium, it does act a bit of as a compressor.
Sure.
So the sound really, really does change when you listen to it on vinyl than when you listen to it on a CD. Obviously, the mastering process is also different from vinyl than it is for CD, but everything just sounded like much more. I wouldn't know how to describe it other than like if you have a painting and then you varnish it, and then
Sure.
like the bright colors are brighter and then like the darkers are darker, and it's kind of everything just becomes much more like lush and like rich. So from that point of view, for me, this format really, really worked. I don't know how that would translate to other styles of music or music which is much more compressed, when there's like, there's not that much dynamic range. So maybe in that case, there's really not that much difference between a vinyl or a CD. I'm really
So
open to
I
being
can I can
wrong.
definitely, so I do audio engineering as well, and so I'm a music nerd. I've been playing music for almost 35 years. I put out a dozen records myself. I'm gonna agree with you. If the music is more lush and full, it gives a warmer, darker tone. If it's more compressed, like really aggressive death metal, you're not gonna get the same feeling and vibe. So absolutely, vinyl is special for very select kinds of music. I don't disagree at all.
Cool.
Yeah, so you're absolutely on the right page with that. So I going into the digital age now. You've been making music for a decade now. I know it probably doesn't feel like that, but you've been making music for a decade
More
now.
than that.
Yeah, so like I said, it's moved into a very SoundCloud, Bandcamp, YouTube world. Do you think the world is inundated with too much music, or is there really just a new musical renaissance happening where there's so many good artists now that it's just like, personally myself, I don't have enough time in my lifetime to listen to everything I want to anymore. And back in the 80s and 90s, it was a whole different world because I had the tape trade. I was using
Yeah.
fanzines, things like that. What's your feeling on that? Is it a better time for music now, or is it just a different, weirder time now?
I don't think there can ever be too much music. I don't think
Okay.
that's a thing. So I'm personally delighted that literally anybody can just like record themselves with a phone or whatever and put it online. Sure, in some cases maybe that would maybe add a bit like, it increases the background noise level. So sometimes it's harder to find things, but so many times the things that you do eventually end up listening to are not there because you want to listen to them. They're there because
Mm,
someone pushed them, shoved them down your throat. And personally, like lots of bands and lots of music that I like has never been put out by a label, or I would have never found out about them unless they had had a Bandcamp or unless they had had a. I am a bit against SoundCloud personally, but Bandcamp, like, ah,
yeah,
ah, I have a little
I agree.
temple in my house. They're just, I just can't believe how amazing they are. They're just, yeah, best
Yeah,
company in the world.
awesome. So I
Now
kind
they
of want
go
to
in.
ask. Oh, awesome. Yeah. So the newest record, it looks like it was co-released by two different companies. I kind of want to see how that happened and if maybe was it a solo record that you were just trying to find partners to work with? Like, how did this whole thing come about?
What do you mean by companies? You mean like the record labels?
Yeah, so it looks like there was like so when the PR guy Zoe gave me the information, it said Music Maxica, and then it said La Rubica Productions. So is that a whole bunch of different people that just worked on the record, or is that people that are releasing it? I kind of wanted to find out a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So initially, I was pushing to get a label for this album, but then I got a contract and we just couldn't reach an agreement.
Okay,
So I decided to self-release again. The album is 100% self-funded. Like
okay,
I've paid for everything. The recording, the session musicians, the artwork, the pressing. I've paid for absolutely everything. There's been some pals who've like joined in, either like have contributed to a small percentage of the copies when they were in factory, or have helped me with like extra promo, or have helped me, it's just kind of very much like a friend
okay,
collaboration. So it's not really, yeah, it's not, I mean, it's not a co-edition as per se. In the case of Música Mágica, it's a bit more like that. Pablo is the singer in Sangre de Muérdago. It's a folk band, um, which is relatively well known, and he's a bit more experienced, and he did help out with some of the, so he could be considered a editor, I guess. Like so,
okay,
at the level of pressing the records, he covered part of the pressing, and he's like distributing them via his own means as well. So it's that. But yeah,
perfect.
it's a bit confusing, I guess, for someone like for people who don't have bands or DIY bands or don't really understand. Like putting out an album is such a massive amount of work, and there's like a trillion steps. And any help along the way is so welcome.
Sure.
It's
Yeah, no,
like, yeah,
absolutely. That makes tons of sense. I run my own record label as well too, so I
yeah,
completely know where you're at. Put out all my own music now. Used to have labels help me out. It's just in this day and age, it almost feels like it's better to do it yourself because you have full control over it. And I completely agree with that. So that's great. Um, what music is inspiring you right now? Like, what are you listening to? Like, what is the music that's making you happy at this moment?
It's a pretty brutal salad, to be honest. Some bands I'm like mega hyped with right now are Cloud Rat. I just can't believe how good they are. I'm completely obsessed with Lingua Ignota as well.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I'm playing with in December. I'm playing with Jarbo, who's like long
Oh
time
wow.
inspiration. So obviously she's like, yeah, I really like her stuff. Um, I actually recently discovered this electronic music person. I have it here. Nordra. She's an
Okay.
yeah. The album is the record label is called Sage Records. They've got really cool electronic stuff there. I really like it. I really like this thing that Lingua Ignota released, Sightless Pit.
Mm-hmm.
Really like that. Still, I really like actually. I know like some people were like ranting about it, but I really like Chelsea Wolfe's band with her drummer
Yeah.
Mrs. Pitt. I
Yeah.
think it's like some of the stuff that I like the most about Chelsea Wolfe is like some of her earlier stuff, like that song Demons, that's like just kind of really punk and
Yeah.
really crid. But then having said that, I don't know, like last week I spent like the whole week listening to classical music. Like I
Okay.
like Shostakovich very much. And this morning I was listening to Erykah Badu, who's like the person with the most flow walking the earth
Gotcha.
currently. So yeah, I think it's kind of like a bit of a massive salad of stuff. I I do think that I have like a very strong rock and metal pull. It's kind of like my
Gotcha.
home base, but I do genuinely listen to all sorts of music. So
Nice. Oh, awesome. So I know it's kind of impossible to do shows and tour and do things like that right at this moment. Uh, but when you can get back out there and do that kind of thing again, is there a specific band or artist that you'd love to tour with that you think that would be a really good vibe with you and that artist?
well, currently I've been talking quite a lot with Joe Quayle's manager, who's like helped me navigate. I mean, like endless thanks to that man. Like he's just helped me navigate so much this whole like na- nightmare of like self-release.
Uh-huh.
And I know, well, I don't know her personally, but I obviously like I've worked with her in like a couple of collaborations, and like I've interacted with Joanna in like a couple of times online, and she just seems like such a wholesome person.
Okay.
And, yeah, I'm starting to meet a couple of more people more in the UK. There's another band, Dead Space Chamber Music, and I'm actually playing a gig with them in November, and I think it would be amazing to do like a whole tour with them. Just it's only been very recent that I've started finding more artists in the rock and metal world that I identified myself a bit more with in sense of like a I don't think you can speak of a genre, but like stylistically that there's like a greater connection beyond obviously like most of my best friends are in bands and I love
Sure.
I love being with them, but like when you have like this kind of also this stylistic component is also aligned. So yeah, those are two bands or artists that I think would be like a really good fit for Moth the Moth. But obviously like it's not for me to decide. So
Okay, no, perfect. So I'm going to kind of close it out with one final question. Thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate it. It's been really awesome to be able to talk to you and kind of see a little bit more inside to the project. But if there's one song off the new record that you could make a full on video, full production, full anything, what track would it be? Why and how would you want it to look?
hmm. Interesting. um, so uh, I think I was gonna say the Mirador, but I'm gonna say Ecdysis for
Okay.
two reasons. First of all, because I'm obsessed with that like video trilogy that Grimes pulled off. That was
Okay.
like, the cornucopia of all video clips. And I think like, I would have initially been like, oh no, poor video editor. Surely they have a family to be with and they need to sleep. But if someone can pull that shit up, I can make an 8-minute video clip.
Cool.
So yeah, I think it's like the one that has the most interesting arc, and it could really benefit from like a visual background or like a combination. Like I don't think
Sure.
you make a video clip is like really hard to really. I don't really think video clips are like videos for music any more than they are music for the video. Like I
Sure.
think to be um, there has to be a reason, right, for you to make a video, right? Otherwise, it's like, why are you making this? So yeah, I would like that it would be something that would add to the music in a more like I would add a storyline or would like help illustrate um, yeah, the storytelling or the vibe behind the song.
Awesome. So again, thank you very much. If you have anything you want to say to your fans out there or to my viewers that are going to be watching this to close it out, here's your time to shine. Just here you go.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for supporting my work and listening to my music. That's ultimately, I guess, like the only way that an artist can eventually like feel like there's any any reason for them not to write the music, because I think like to do the music is like has to come from yourself, but like just to take the step of putting it out there, like that's really like the only reward that you get, right? That people like it or people like message you, whatever, and you see that like someone's like moved. That's like a really great gift. So thank you so much for listening and for taking the time to watch this interview.
Sure.
And
Again,
yeah, I
awesome.
hope I can be back playing live very soon because I really miss it.
Yeah, you think you're ever going to come over to the States and play at all, or?
Well, that would be the dream. Yeah, it's
Mm,
quite hard. It's quite hard with the visas and everything, and so you do have to have like a solid tour organized to kind of be able to justify, that price or like organizing that stuff. But yeah, obviously, like never lose hope.
awesome.
If there's any tour managers watching this and would like to book me,
Well, I hope that makes it happen. So yeah, that would be great. Other than that, thank you so very much for your time, and you have a good day.
yeah, same to you. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.